Hello, ladies and gents. Welcome to UX, and this is why the A-10 Warthog solved what the US Navy couldn't at Hormuz. I'm guessing that's Strait of Hormuz. Okay. This is what Navy decoded. US Navy destroyed 120 Iranian warships, and Hormuz is still closed. Idiots. Would you know? Yeah. 2 carrier strike groups, 8 Aegis destroyers, and couldn't do anything. Weak. $40 billion in naval firepower. Yeah, couldn't reopen 6 miles, just like this small shipping lane, clogged with 1,500 fast boats. Yeah, the answer wasn't all that. Navy sucks. Answer was A-10 apparently. Yeah, A-10 is badass. Apparently A-10 did all that thing. Is A-10 part of, not part of US Navy? I'm guessing it wouldn't. More like US Air Force. I'm pretty sure it's all part of CENTCOM. So kind of part of the same, like command structure. And yeah, one weapon cannot do everything by itself. But yeah, A-10 is a proper attack plane, which you never know could be just the right answer, which it probably is. Yeah, so it's going to be interesting. Let's watch this one.
120 warships. That is how many Iranian vessels the United States Navy has destroyed or disabled since February 28th. 2 carrier strike groups, 8 Aegis destroyers, $40 billion of naval firepower deployed across 2 oceans.
Imagine how many A-10s you could have bought for all that money. 2 aircraft carrier, that's like 26 billion or something, not to mention everything else. Imagine the number of A-10s. You probably run out of civilians before you run out of A-10s. Yeah.
And the result? The Strait of Hormuz is still closed. 95% of commercial shipping has vanished. 3,200 vessels, including 250 oil tankers, sit anchored in the Gulf, going nowhere. We did not lose a single ship. We did not lose a single engagement. We eliminated the entire Iranian submarine fleet, every Soleimani-class corvette, every drone carrier, every major surface combatant Tehran ever built. And yet,
Every drone carrier, wasn't that just one? Or was there more?
the shipping lane stays shut. The oil stays stuck. The world economy bleeds $40 billion a week. Why? Because the most powerful navy in human history had to pick up the phone and call the Air Force. Specifically, they needed an aircraft the Air Force had been begging Congress to let them retire. A 50-year-old airplane designed in the 1970s to kill Soviet tanks on the plains of Europe. An airplane that top Pentagon officials called obsolete, redundant, and unfit for
I like officially they just decided to put that shark mouth on it. Yeah, there you go.
modern warfare, right up until the moment they needed it more than anything else in the inventory. Subscribe to Navy Decoded. We do not celebrate weapons. We calculate whether they work. And this equation is one of the most counterintuitive we have ever run. Type proud if the Warthog earned it. To understand why a carrier air wing cannot solve a problem that a Cold War relic solves in its first sortie, we first need to understand the problem. The Strait of Hormuz is 21 nautical miles wide at its narrowest point. But that number is misleading. The actual shipping lane, the corridor where tankers must pass, is 6 nautical miles. 2 miles inbound, 2 miles outbound, and a 2-mile buffer between them. That is the entire playable space. Everything else is Iranian territorial water. Now consider the adversary inside that space. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy operates more than 1,500 fast attack craft. Not warships, speedboats. Fiberglass and composite hulls, most under 15 tons. The slowest ones run at 50 knots. The fastest exceeds 70. And Iran claims some of its newest designs can break 100. These are not targets a radar was
100 knots. That's fast, man. For anything on water, 100 knots is insane.
designed to track. They are small, low to the water, and they move faster than most pleasure boats in Miami. Each one costs somewhere between $50,000 and $500,000. And each one carries an anti-ship missile, the Nasr-1, with a 35-kilometer range and a terminal speed of Mach 0.
Derived from Chinese C-704 technology, okay.
0.9. That is enough to mission kill a frigate. Their doctrine is simple. Swarm. 30 to 50 boats attack simultaneously from every direction. Overwhelm the sensors. Saturate the defenses. Force the destroyer to choose which boat to shoot, knowing that every missile it fires costs more than every boat it aims at. And that is the real problem. Let us look at the math. An SM-6 interceptor costs $5.3 million. Firing it at a $50,000 speedboat is a 100-to-1 cost ratio in Iran's favor. A Harpoon costs $1.5 million and was designed to track cruiser-sized targets, not composite skiffs doing 70 knots between container ships. The Mark 45 5-inch gun fires 16 to 20 rounds per minute, respectable against one target.
Look, man, here's what I'm going to say about this, right? ISRO, Indian Space, NASA equivalent, you know what I mean. So ISRO, went to the moon and also Mars for the, 10th? Was it 100th? I'm going to go with 10th. 10th of the money that America used with NASA. Both achieved the same thing, both reached there, but India used 10th of the money the USA used. USA does have problems of making things expensive, having this leaky bucket. Look at the $1 trillion you wasted during COVID, which didn't even go to the people it was supposed to. You have an insanely leaky bucket. And that applies to everywhere, even the things that it costs. So when they say Harpoon missile costs $1.5 million, SM-6 costs $5 million, does it though? There needs to be some kind of internal, rework of everything, right? Some oversight and something that, trim all these things down. You can make these things cheaper, but these things are insanely costly, right? American things usually are. And America has a lot of money, so people are fine, it is what it is. It boosts the economy, who cares, move on. But you can make this cheaper because your warfare is kind of dependent on it. Imagine if you made things 30% cheaper than it is now. That would benefit military immensely high. And I think you can do it if you really look for it, right? I mean, military-industrial complex is very profitable. But to me, it feels like it's too profitable. You can see it and make it affordable, right? At least that's how it feels to me.
Hopeless against 50. The Phalanx CIWS empties its magazine in 20 seconds and takes 4 minutes to reload. And the FA-18E Super Hornet, the carrier's primary strike aircraft, costs $30,000 per flight hour, flies too fast to visually distinguish an IRGC boat from a fishing trawler among 3,200 civilian vessels, and its on-station time at combat loadout is a fraction of what this mission demands. The Navy does have one tool designed for this kind of fight, the MH-60R Seahawk helicopter. It carries Hellfire missiles and a cabin-mounted machine gun. It can patrol, identify, and engage small surface targets. But the Seahawk was built primarily for anti-submarine warfare, not for hunting 50 fast boats at once. It carries 4 to 8 Hellfires per sortie, depending on configuration, has limited loiter time compared to a fixed-wing aircraft, and it is vulnerable to the same 12.7mm and 14.5mm gunfire that saturates Hormuz, without the 1,200-pound titanium cocoon that keeps an A-10 pilot alive. The Seahawk is a scalpel. The swarm problem needs a chainsaw. So the missiles are too expensive, the guns are too slow, the jets are too fast, and the helicopter is too small. That is not a list of bad weapons. That is a pattern. And the pattern points to something deeper. Every weapon in the carrier strike group's arsenal is designed for blue water, open ocean, high-value targets, long range, expensive munitions matched to expensive threats. The Strait of Hormuz is brown water, a 6-mile corridor filled with cheap, fast, numerous targets hiding among thousands of civilian ships. The Navy brought a surgical laser to a knife fight, and the knife fight needed a shotgun. The ironic part? The shotgun already existed. The Pentagon just wanted to throw it away.
Yeah.
The A-10 Thunderbolt II, the Warthog, is built around a gun, literally. The GAU-8A Avenger was designed.
I like a gun probably goes all the way back here, right? That's how big the gun is. It's insane.
First, the airplane was designed around it. That 7-barrel Gatling cannon fires 30mm depleted uranium rounds at 3,900 per minute, 65 rounds per second. The aircraft carries 1,150 rounds in a drum the size of a Volkswagen Beetle. At a 2-second burst, the standard engagement, the pilot puts roughly 130 rounds downrange. Cost per round? About $137 for the armor-piercing DU variant. Let us do the math that changes everything. 70 rounds into a fiberglass fastboat equals under $10,000. The same kill with an SM-6 costs $5.3 million. That is a 500-to-1 cost advantage. Not a marginal improvement, a categorical shift in the economics of engagement. But the gun is only part of the equation. The A-10 carries 16,000 pounds of ordnance across 11 hardpoints.
I think the main point is that it's an attack plane. Like, it's very slow compared to everything else. It's like just in the sweet spot. Again, I'm going to say this again. Why are you not using AC-130? Circling Strait of Hormuz with its howitzer loaded on and many other guns. You can target things if you really wanted to. Right? It's like very unique plane that just circles in place and can target one specific area for longer time. Yeah, that's also an A plane, attack plane.
For medium-range targets, a pay cap at 12 nautical miles, the pilot fires an AGM-65 Maverick, an infrared-guided missile that costs between $150,000 and $170,000. Still 30 times cheaper than an SM-6. For fast boats mixed with drones, the A-10 carries APKWS, a laser guidance kit bolted onto a standard Hydra 70 rocket. Cost per shot? About $35,000. Precision guidance at the price of a mid-range sedan. Now consider the physics that make those weapons possible at Hormuz. The A-10's maximum speed is Mach 0.75, roughly 420 miles per hour. But when it drops to low altitude and begins its patrol loops, it flies around 300 knots. And this is an advantage, not a limitation.
Knots is what? Why'd you knots is, wait a minute. Yeah, knots are very close to miles, not kilometers. So that would be like 340 miles. So that would be literally half Mach, right? 0.5 or something, slightly less than 0.5. That's very slow, man. That's just the thing you need, right? If you are on an attack plane, because anything else is much faster.
When an FA-18E crosses the shipping lane at 500 plus knots, every target on the surface stays in the pilot's field of view for less than 2 seconds. At that speed, distinguishing an IRGC pay cap from a Kuwaiti fishing dhow among 3,200 civilian vessels is essentially impossible. The A-10 at 300 knots gives the pilot 2 to 3 times longer to identify, confirm, and engage. The pilot does not rely on sensor readouts in a heads-down display. The pilot looks out the canopy, sees the rocket launchers bolted to the gunnel, sees the military paint, pulls the trigger.
None of the pesky, high-tech sensor crap. It's the old way. Look outside and pull the trigger. Literal trigger. There you go. That's badass, man.
Compare that to the Navy's MH-60R Seahawk, the tool we discussed earlier. The Seahawk cruises at around 140 knots and carries 4 to 8 Hellfires. It can identify and engage, but it covers less than half the ground the A-10 covers in the same time, carries a tenth of the weapons, and must return to the ship after 90 minutes. An A-10 at 300 knots with 1,150 cannon rounds, 6 Mavericks, and external fuel tanks does not replace the Seahawk. It operates in a category the Seahawk was never built to enter. That is what loiter means in engineering terms. The A-10 stays on station for approximately 1 hour and 50 minutes on internal fuel. With 600-gallon external tanks, that extends to 2.5 hours over the strait, flying racetrack patterns, scanning, waiting, selecting. The aircraft does not burn through its fuel racing to and from a carrier 200 miles away. It stays in the kill zone, persistently. And the wings explain why it does this so efficiently. The A-10 uses straight wings, not the swept wings of the FA-18 or F-35. Swept wings reduce drag at high Mach numbers, but increase it at low speeds. The A-10 never needs high Mach. At 300 knots, straight wings generate lift more efficiently, burn less fuel, and deliver a tighter turn radius. That last point matters enormously. With the shipping lane only 6 nautical miles wide, the A-10 can bank, reverse, and re-enter its patrol loop without ever leaving the engagement corridor. The straight wing also creates a more stable
Yeah, for attack plane, yeah, you need to circle back pretty faster so it can do. I mean, it's American engineering. It was made as an attack plane, so of course it's going to accelerate it, right? It's great for loitering. Uh, Obviously, like Seahawk can't do that. Basically, how a homeless guy can loiter outside of your home, patrolling your garden just to make it its home, right? That loitering is important. If you can't loiter, you can't really, place out the joint. If I should do this, where should I put my tent and all that shit. So A-10 is great for that.
Gun platform. Less oscillation at low speed means the GAU-8 puts rounds exactly where the pilot aims during a strafing run. One more thing about that gun. The recoil force of the GAU-8 at full rate is approximately 45 kilonewtons, 10,000 pounds of force. Each of the A-10's two TF-34 engines...
If one engine goes out, other engine is not powerful enough to equal the force of the recoil of the gun. That is insanity. Ignore it has two engines. Let's just talk about engine. It has two engines, but let's talk about the engine alone. They made a specific engine for a plane. That engine is not strong enough for the recoil of the gun. That's insane.
Produces about 40 kilonewtons of thrust. In a 2-second burst, the gun generates nearly as much backward force as one engine generates forward. The airplane physically decelerates during firing. That is not a design flaw. It is a measure of how much kinetic energy the weapon delivers. Each 30mm DU penetrator...
That's not design flaw, that's anxiety of engineer. Because Pentagon went like, yeah, I need this gun and make a plane around it. And just like, what? Yeah, there you go. Make a plane around it.
Leaves the barrel at over 1,000 meters per second, carrying roughly 267 kilojoules of energy, enough to penetrate 69 millimeters of rolled homogeneous armor. A fiberglass fastboat has zero armor. This is not a fair fight. It is not designed to be. And the A-10 will take the hits that come back. The pilot sits inside a 1,200-pound titanium bathtub, the only aircraft in the American inventory that encases its cockpit in armor designed to withstand 23mm armor-piercing rounds and 57mm fragmentation. In Desert Storm, Colonel Bobby Efferson brought home an A-10 with 378 holes in the airframe. In Iraq in 2003, Captain Kim Campbell of the 75th Expeditionary Fighter Squadron lost all hydraulic control over Baghdad, both primary and backup lines severed, and flew her A-10 home using manual reversion, a system of cranks and cables that bypasses every electronic and hydraulic control surface.
Huh? Wait, what do you mean without hydraulics? So how did she move things? Don't you need hydraulic things like what she used her physical force?
She landed safely.
Yeah, that's insane.
The Distinguished Flying Cross followed. That survivability is not academic at Hormuz.
That is when you know you're a proper pilot. If you know how to fly a plane the way it's supposed to fly, great, you're a pilot. But if you everything's screwed and you still landed, I remember there was a instance of somebody landing F-15 with just one wing. That's when you know you're a proper pilot.
The IRGC's coastal emplacements fire 12.7mm and 14.5mm machine guns. An FA-18 avoids that threat by flying high and loses target identification. The A-10 flies low, absorbs the hits, and keeps shooting, because that is what it was built to do. But one airplane, no matter how tough, cannot hold a 6-mile corridor alone. But the A-10 does not operate alone. What is happening above the Strait of Hormuz right now is something the American military has never done before in combat. 3 branches of the armed forces operating simultaneously over a single 6-mile naval corridor, each covering the gap the others cannot fill. Layer 1 is the A-10, Air Force. It flies racetrack patterns at 3,000 feet, hunting fast boats and coastal missile positions. The GAU-8 and APKWS handle close-range threats. The Maverick handles targets at 12 nautical miles. The A-10 costs $19,000 per flight hour. Layer 2 is the AH-64 Apache, Army. Attack helicopters operating from expeditionary sea bases, floating forward operating bases for Army aviation.
Wait a minute, Air Force doesn't have this? Why Army? shouldn't anything that fly be part of Air Force? I mean, I get it, Army needs support, so attack helicopter should be with Army. But shouldn't Air Force also have Apache with them? I don't know.
This is a concept first tested operationally in 2020 aboard the USS Lewis B. Puller and now deployed at scale. Army attack helicopters staging from a Navy platform to fight a naval battle. Each Apache carries up to 16 Hellfire missiles at $70,000 to $200,000 each and a 30mm M230 chain gun. The same caliber as the Warthogs, but chain-driven rather than Gatling, highly effective against unarmored boats.
Same caliber, but not the same size, right? I mean, no, it can't be the same size. There's a reason why A-10 has all the recoil and everything. It's probably going to be different size.
They fly at 200 feet, below the A-10, picking off the targets that slip through. Layer 3 is the Navy itself. Aegis destroyers and littoral combat ships maintaining the air defense umbrella and surface patrol. The destroyers keep their SM-6 inventory for the threats that actually justify the cost: anti-ship ballistic missiles, cruise missiles flying at Mach 3. Odin and Helios directed energy systems handle drones. The LCS deploys its own drone swarms and mine clearing systems.
I don't know about Odin and Helios taking care of the drones. Maybe one or two, but swarms, they can't do it. Odin is the dazzler, confusing the system. Helios is the one that burns it down, but it can only do one at a time, right? I mean, you need Meteor in your ships. Like, it's probably ready. Like, I think that's going to happen soon. In next 4 or 5 years, probably destroyers will be fitted with Meteor as well. If you don't put it on destroyer, at least put it on carrier. Because energy, like where you get the energy would be the issue, because it would require a lot of energy. And you have like proper fusion core, in your like ships, right? Nuclear cores in it. So yeah, energy shouldn't be an issue.
Here is the convergence equation. Before combined arms, the Navy engaged fast boats with SM-6 interceptors, $5.3 million shot against $50,000 targets, draining 90 to 96 VLS cells on each destroyer, many of which are already committed to Tomahawks, SM-2s, and ESSM quad packs. After combined arms, the A-10 handles the fast boats for $10,000 per engagement. The Apache handles the close-in threats for $70,000, and the Navy preserves its missile inventory for the Mach 3 threats that nothing else can stop. The VLS cells last 10 times longer. The math flips. Iran's strategic miscalculation was assuming the Navy would fight alone. Their swarm doctrine was designed to drain VLS cells. 1,500 fast boats against 96 vertical launch tubes. The arithmetic was intentional. The IRGC studied the 2002 Millennium Challenge wargame, where a retired Marine Lieutenant General used swarm boats to sink 16 American warships in the opening phase, and forced the Pentagon to restart the exercise. Iran built an entire naval strategy around that simulation, but they built it for a scenario where the Navy answers alone. They did not account for the Air Force flying at 3,000 feet with a gun that fires 65 rounds per second, or the Army flying at 200 feet with laser-guided missiles launched from a ship. The equation changes when the variables change. So the question that started this video deserves its answer. If this breakdown changed how you see naval warfare, subscribe to Navy Decoded and drop Warthog in the comments if you think the A-10 earned its place in this fight. So, why did the most powerful Navy in human history need to call the Air Force? Not because the Navy is weak. The Navy was engineered for blue water, open ocean, capital ships, precision weapons measured in hundreds of nautical miles. The Strait of Hormuz is brown water, a 6-mile shipping lane, 1,500 composite speedboats, cheap weapons requiring cheap answers. A good engineer does not use a wrench to hammer a nail. A good engineer selects the right tool. The irony is that the right tool was an airplane the Air Force wanted to discard. $19,000 per flight hour versus $30,000. $10,000 per kill versus $5.3 million. The answer to a problem worth billions of dollars in stranded oil: a 50-year-old aircraft flying 300 knots with a gun that weighs more than a Volkswagen Beetle. but the A-10 will retire. Congress currently forbids the Air Force from reducing the fleet below 103 aircraft through September 2026, but the transition plan for 2027 through 2029 remains open. The question is not whether to keep the Warthog forever. The question is this: when the A-10 leaves, what fills the gap? Loitering drones with 30mm cannons? The MQ-9 Reaper adapted for maritime interdiction? Or does the Navy finally build its own brown water weapon? An aircraft designed not for the deep ocean, but for the narrow, contested corridors where wars are actually fought. We do not worship the machine, we worship the equation, and the equation says the right tool wins, not the expensive one.
You know, make a new A-10 or something, because this should be clear in the case and you need it. Like, there is a gap in your thing, which is like slow speed attack, plane. I feel insane that every time somebody points out in the modern warfare, you never do dogfight. Great. In modern warfare, you never do tank battle. Great. In modern warfare, you don't use A-10 because it will be shot down like that. This is not a video game. There are factors in play. And at the right time, at the right place, you need your tool. And you should have that tool for that specific use. A-10 is that tool. Maybe something like China, if you had a war with China, A-10 would not work. For something else, you need A-10. So you should have that thing that if you retire A-10, have a replacement. Slow speed, maybe stealthy if you can, better with better armor, right? Imagine the bucket, which is even more stronger, better technology, but you need something there. A-10 is badass. Right, well, there you go. Why the A-10 Warthog solved what the US Navy couldn't at Hormuz. By Channel Navy Decoded. If you like my example, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.